And it really shows in their unit movement and aggression and capitalization, and they're always going for the cool moves, and they're really fun to watch. And in the top right-hand side, it is one of these players. It is Exxon's Nina.
And her opponent in the southwest position of Oxide, the red Terran player. He is Future.
All right, Nate, we are finally in America. Now, it always gives us a strange brand of games, North America, as contrasted with Europe, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's just say, what's a good way to describe this? What's like a good, clean sport that has like a filthy version that people are like, ooh, you know, like this is the kind of thing you have to watch on the late night channels because it gets a little bit messy sometimes, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a sport like that.
This is like, it's like when you tune in to watch like the motorcycle or like the NASCAR, but this is the version where nobody has any pads. There's no frame around the cars. Everybody's just kind of driving around a track at like 300 kilometers an hour, but like Mad Max style. You know what I mean? And when somebody spills, it gets messy. That's American StarCraft for you.
What is it
right
called?
There.
The dirt, like the bikes that go on dirt? Is it
it's dirt bikes.
Oh,
yeah. They're just.
Yeah. But American.
This is basically like that, but there's explosives strapped to everybody.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you attribute that to for North American StarCraft? Like, why is it so explosive and so different from EU, you think?
I think a lot of it has to do with just there's almost always been a better infrastructure, right, for players in practice in Europe. You know, like there are base level things that, especially, you know, with just the way that American society works versus European society, where we're like, hey, people are more spread out, right? In the US, there's not a bunch of trains that you can take to get everywhere like you can in Europe. It's not as easy to say, oh, I only live a 2-hour train ride from home to Story Cup. I'm going to go play in that. In the US, it's like, can you afford a flight, or do you have your own car to make that very long drive with? That's, you know, it becomes a whole like different sort of thing. And I think that back when there was a bit more tournament support in America, there were less crazy players that were good in the scene, if that makes sense. So I feel like as that support kind of shifted elsewhere, so did the players, right? And then we ended up with just whoever was left by. They were the players that were scrappy, right? The guys that can just kind of make it happen no matter what. But that ended up just being a more volatile type of play style. It wasn't quite the big think tank experiment, right? Where everybody can kind of get together, where you have lots of players who are really good in individual countries. You know, there was never a Pennsylvania StarCraft group of players all teamed up and lived in a house with each other and were amazing. You know, it was either paid for by a multi-million-dollar company that eventually pulled out, or it never happened. So stuff like that, I feel, was always a big factor in it, because the old really good NA players were never really weird like that, right? Like Idra was a boring macro player who just
Idra. I mean, Idra is the antithesis. Idra is the best example of a boring macro player. But I actually don't think we had. I mean, we also had Hawk, right? Like we had a lot of very crazy.
What did you do but 4-gate in the first 2 years of this game, though? Let's be honest. Like what? Honest. Like what else are you gonna do?
My point is, I completely agree with your assessment in that I think that players can afford to be more serious about games in Europe than America because of the way the societal structures are set up in different continents, right? There's a lot more social benefits, a lot more padding for Europeans to go full time, oftentimes, and that definitely contributes to the skill level. But I think as far as like stylistically, much of what you were talking about, like for example, Europeans being more communal, and you talked about distance, I think that is part of it. I think that Americans in general tend to be more individualistic, and I think that really shows through in their play styles. Like no one is really doing or copying exactly the same as someone else is doing, and there's players like Estrella who rise above, right? Like there was recently, for example, a challenge that Pilipili issued to get adepts by 4 minutes and 20 seconds, a specific timing with 8 adepts attacking, and that's Cest's build, right? And he showed exactly how Cest does it. Then I tried with Estrella, and in 2 games, Estrella got a stronger attack with 9 adepts instead of 8. in under the time at like 4 minutes and 15 seconds, just because he will tinker with it and understand the game so well that he is able to create those little differences and chaotic advantages. Whereas I think Europe is much more communal in their thinking and kind of like subscribe to bigger currents of thought, I guess. Yeah. But yeah,
and to be clear, because this is one of those things that like people love to argue about, but at the end of the day, there is no one single answer, right? There's a whole bunch of things that make everybody different around the world, right? Whether it's the way that the norms that are expected of you, or the ways that people think, right? Like all of these things do kind of factor into it to a bit. I just felt like there was never really that stable infrastructure after the first few years, right? Like a lot of money got dumped into tournaments, but then everything shifted over to all these big EU events. And if you were an aspiring American player, good luck getting the money together to fly all the way to Sweden to try and compete in a tournament, right? That was always going to be a pretty big limiting factor. We do have a pretty big move out though from Future, trying to hit this anti-third timing. And Nina almost snags a medevac while blinking away.
Yeah, and this is the aggressiveness that we were talking about, right? Like it's Future pushing out whilst taking a third own location, but this is a very committed attack already from the American Terran, as Nina warps in some Stalkers defensively as well. Blink Stalkers is one of her favorite units because they're so microable and they can really serve to create chaos. She has to be paying attention here. Don't want to be breaking those rocks, but the Cyclone is going to get himself a very nice pickoff in a sentry there as Future encroaches on forward.
Yeah, and this position is kind of tough, right? Like if you try to just play around the choke as the Protoss, it can be a little bit tricky because those Zealots they get kind of fed one by one into those Marines because the space is so constricted. So one of the tanks is killed, but Nina lost a pretty significant amount of her defensive forces. In Future cancels this third and pulls the boys.
But I love that decision because if you're Nina, you can't stop it. You see what I'm saying? Like I would never think of many players that would be willing to cancel their finishing third as the attack is working and just pull SCVs and say you can't stop me because you made too many Stalkers, you don't really have enough. Future is gonna try and capitalize on this opening as it is given to him. There is no AoE for Nina and she didn't manage to slow down the army enough of Future with those Blink Stalkers on the other side. Future is just gonna plow through this, it looks like, but the battery overcharge, Nate, will it be enough?
That's a lot of Marines, even with the battery overcharge. And the thing is, it can't heal multiple units at once. So, yes, there's an unkillable Zealot, but all the probes that get pulled die. And Stutter stepping forward to victory is Future. A game one, swift win there. And really that just boiled down to a well-hit timing. I mean, Future was not even ready. He wasn't even thinking about fully committing until he recognized, oh my God, I'm actually in a really good spot. I actually have this, right? So,
yeah. And I'm really glad that we were talking about everything that we were talking about because it kind of feeds into that narrative so perfectly, right? Like these are such chaotic, adaptive players and intuitive, right? If you feel like you can do it, then you can probably do it, and Future will lean in on those type of advantages. So really well done by him. Obviously, we missed a little bit of the openers with our very fun discussion, so I hope no one's too mad about that. But you know, we got there in time for the important part, and I think this is kind of what we can expect of the series, for Future to go for 2 base aggression and not really commit too much to the macro behind it oftentimes.
Yeah, and that's a very Future, right? That's a very Future-esque type thing. I will say I haven't seen him straight up start as third and then cancel and pull SCVs while the attack is already going. That's
yeah.
But that is exactly the kind of like, all right, put it all on red, right? That's exactly that kind of. He's not really thinking about anything else. He's just thinking about what he wants in that moment, and he went to take it, and it worked. It did work that time. So that kind of confident edge kind of plays well. I always thought that was one of the reasons why Neeb actually ended up coming up and being so good, because he was very good at the standard builds, but he had a couple of specific aggressive types of things that he would do that he had carved out and was very, very good at, specifically like doing a lot of resonating glaive attacks back when it was kind of considered to be less meta. People weren't doing it as much, but if you were up against Neeb adepts, you were always gonna be like, okay, well, he really knows how to carve somebody apart with this unit. And yeah, Future kind of taking a similar path there, just boom, drives it in home, uses the map very well, and now has a 1-0 lead as we head to Romanticide for game number 2.
Yeah, it's gonna be an exciting one. And here's where I get a little bit worried for Nina or whoever lost that first game, really, because they are snowbally players and they are emotional players, both of them. So hopefully she doesn't get caught into thinking too much about that game. Hopefully she's able to reset. She's of course a veteran of the scene and an excellent player. So we'll see if she is able to stabilize here on Romanticide, spawning at the bottom right hand side of the map. It is the Brew Pro Tour Sprayer. It is Nina.
Another stellar talent on Exxon as well. Exxon picking up so many players, providing a lot of support from what I've been hearing. Awesome to see that. And as well from Alpha X in the Northwest, we have representing them, the Red Terran player. He is Future.
Yeah, and Alpha X, of course, has been not just picking up many players, but also putting on a lot of cool content and events for the community over the last few years. So huge props to them as well in both teams, really keeping and revitalizing the North American scene and kind of carrying it forward to a good degree.
Yeah, these are the kinds of memes that we need. But here's the pylon pretty early. And this is actually so early. I think it's going to be a second gateway. Right? To do it this fast, there's no reason to risk showing it this early and just let it sit here, at least in my mind. And it's normal to get, so second gateway, cybernetics core. This is one of those builds I was talking about earlier. This is very much so a bop it build. If you play PvT, you can win probably, I would honestly guess, like almost half your games if you do this build regularly and you get good at it, just because it is so. Did my opponent scout? Did my opponent SCV scout? No? Okay, well, unless they rush the bunker crazy fast, which sometimes is not enough, the two gateway pressure that a lot of Protoss players started to do, I think sometime around the summer of 2017, right as that proxy meta was getting pushed out, has been kind of kept in the pocket for a lot of TOS players. But it is very hard to hold if you do not get some form of early defense. And we might see Nina steal a quick one here off of Future if he doesn't get a grip on what's going on.
But he seems to have gotten a grip on what's going on, Nate. Maybe with that SCV scout that gave him a lot of time, he was trying to drop the CC, and I was thinking, wow, Nina's really selling this because she wants that CC to be dropped on the low ground, right? And she's still denying it with the probe, which is, I think, a good sales point. But then Future, I guess, arrives at Nina's base or something that gives him enough information to say, actually, I don't want that CC. I instead want this bunker, and Nina's gonna be here a little bit early, but the Marine manages to get in.
Yeah, now see, this is really tricky, though. You need to be careful as Nina. It wouldn't be too difficult for Future to either start a depot or a reactor and just block that position off. So now the Stalker is trapped. It's guaranteed to die eventually. At 1 weakened Marine, he's just going to chill in the bunker. But with the SCVs and everything else, Nina ends up paying a pretty high price for sending that Stalker straight into the main base.
Yes, indeed. And she has that gateway out on the map as well. Something to note of the first probe scout was that it never passed through the SCV. They never met it out on the map. So I find that could have given enough information to Future to know that that probe was coming from somewhere else, right? To know that probe had already potentially proxied a building, because this is not an asymmetrical map in scouting patterns. Some maps, the scouts miss each other. This one's not one of them.
Yeah, that's I think that was one of the first weird things I noticed about Gigantha is I don't think the workers will go on the same path if both players just click straight to the other side as far as the new maps in this pool go. But you bring up an excellent point. You do not want to miss out on possible information that the map is hiding from you just because it's got a weird pathing setup. Future does have an SCV that's been checking around his base, looking for wherever that gate was. He finds it with these Marines. But you also don't want to take the risk to try and kill it immediately because, a couple Stalkers show up, an Adept or two, or they warp 1 or 2 in at this warp gate since it will be fast. Then things start to snowball because really it is still just this bunker that's holding everything together for Future. And while Nina is expanding as well, she's going into this Immortals. I'm wondering if we're going to see like a Prism or something come out. Or who's going to be aggressive first? It's a hard question to answer when you've got these two.
Yeah, that is a very hard question to answer. I guess it's gonna be Future again. I mean, he did add a lot of infrastructure, and this secondary base is very kind of late for him, right?
Yeah.
Or is this fine? Do you find this is okay? Like, is he chilling with this late of a CC?
It's not as big of a deal as it might normally be because Nina's expansion was also really delayed, right? Like at the end of the day, Nina forced a pretty big investment from Future to survive, but Nina did not really do much damage, didn't really do any damage. So it's just kind of one of those, like, it's a wash situations where both players are going to be pushed to play a normal game, but all the timings are delayed by like a minute or two now, right? Like maybe 3 minutes even.
Yeah, and this is the kind of game where intuition really pays off, right? Like when you're really not sure exactly what your opponent's position is, because it's already a very strange game. Both players delayed by their own choices more than anything else, but not in a clunky or ugly way, right? They both have had to respect what their opponent is throwing at them.
Oh, 100%. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really know why Nino tried to block Future from building the command center on location on time. I feel like there's a lot more benefit that she could have gained by trying to let him build it. Or maybe the probe was dancing there, so he'd build it off location. But the fact that Future actually had the wherewithal to build it inside of his main base and not just slam it down in front of the probe was also pretty impressive. Like, I'm just kind of going through this whole game in my head again, a little quick rewind, and it has been an interesting one. But to that point, as you were saying, that's where the intuition becomes a big deal, because if you're one of those nerds and you're like, okay, I can do this exact build because it's literally impossible to have a Colossus before X time. Well, guess what? All that's thrown out the window because the whole game's been weird.
Yes, exactly. If you're a very tight nerd on your timings, then you're gonna struggle in games like this. You really have to get a good feel for what's going on. I really agree with you, though, on that CC not being placed on location. I think Nina was just trying to sell it too hard, you know, almost like just be a little bit less good on purpose, though obviously that's giving information as well. It allowed for Future, I think, to get together enough information to drop that CC on the high ground. That was all he needed. So yet still, Nina is establishing a third base, once again working very low on that AoE. Now dropping the Templar Archives, but really avoiding most robo AoE damage, which is very uncharacteristic, I would say, in the matchup.
Yes. Well, there's the SCVs, by the way, coming with everything again here. Am I surprised? No, I had nothing. This doesn't surprise me anymore, but this could be really awkward because Stim is there. Oh my God, no, Nina wants to like jump on this, but the Dorito cannon. So it's important to keep in mind, this is actually the only way for workers in StarCraft to deal more than the default 5 damage of an attack that they do. So it's actually, the SCV pull becomes way stronger if you can engage the Protoss army with that -3 armor, -3 shields, because it does put units into negative. So it is a straight up 3 damage buff across the board, no matter what. And this is a lot of units to have to plow through for Nina if she's going to kill this army.
Yeah, but Future is going to want more than this third. He is obviously extremely committed with the SCV's pool. The problem for Nina, again, is the lack of AoE, especially with this many units. The Zealots are going to have a lot of work, and they don't even get through the SCVs to get to the rest of the army. It looks like Future has Nina's number today, though that battery overcharge is going to have something to say, but not nearly enough, as these Immortals can only target 1 unit at a time, and it looks like Nina is going to fall 0-2